Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of Suits and Sports. We were off for a while, however, we are back with a very special guest. So, a lot of you people asked us, how come we haven't gotten someone from the cricket industry? Well, finally, we've gotten Mr. Eklavya. Before that, I would like to welcome each and every one of you. My name is Ryan James, and I'm joined by our founder, Mr. Subrajit Chanda. And both of us would like to welcome our guest for today, Mr. Eklavya Dwivedi. Mr. Eklavya here is an Indian cricketer who's played domestic cricket for Uttar Pradesh. And he's also been part of several IPL teams, sharing dressing rooms with some big players. And he himself is a very good wicketkeeper batsman as well. And lastly, he is also currently a practicing lawyer, which makes Subrajit sir and me very excited to know that. So, Mr. Eklavya, sir, hi, how are you?
I'm good, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And I'm happy to be here and looking forward to an exciting session ahead.
Sir, so my first question to you is very generic. So a lot of cricketers, like after they stop playing, they decide to, stay in the same field, stay in sports, but you decided to, switch and become a lawyer. So what was the idea behind that, or what led to you making that decision?
So to be completely honest, Ryan, in my last season in the first class circuit, I got injured. I had a bad injury. I tore my adductor muscles, and it was a grade 3 tear. So then I had to unfortunately miss out on the rest of the season, and then my auctions in the IPL didn't go so well. And that at that stage, I was already 29. So I had to miss another season and then start from scratch all over again. So the options in front of me were either to continue, persist, and play for another 4-5 years of domestic cricket and IPL and etc., or make a switch to law when I still had time to, make up for the lost years and then probably start a good practice in law. So I chose the latter, and I do have certain grounding in law. Some of my family is also involved in law, so there is a base for me to work with. So all those things, keeping all those things in mind, these factors which would enable me to probably set up a practice, I decided to make that switch.
So so Rand, I hope you don't know about this. So even Mr. Dwivedi's granddad was also judge in Supreme Court. So that is the reason when you talk with someone, you have to do some basic research of that person, and even if he's from a law background as well as from a sports background. So welcome, Mr. Dwivedi, once again. So if we move towards we will move towards a little bit towards this law segment. But before that, I want to know one thing from your side. That you have played in many franchises, right? You played in CSK, you played with Pune Warriors India, you played for Hyderabad. So it means like if I say CSK and Pune Warriors, so you have played with most of the legend, right? Brandon McCullum and MS Dhoni. If in CSK, then I think you have played with Yuvraj Singh, and you have seen Dada from the Saurav Ganguly in Pune Warriors India. So, which franchisee you have enjoyed most?
So, see, there are different facets to enjoyment, if I were to be completely honest, Mr. Subrajit. But in terms of just pure cricket, I think nobody does it better than CSK, as everybody is aware. But I had great fun, not just with CSK, I had great fun with Gujarat Lions also, which team was there for just a couple of years when CSK and one other team got suspended. So that team that I played, I made my debut with and I had some success in the IPL with. So those days are very cherished and I would like to think that that's where I enjoyed the most. But in terms of pure cricketing culture, probably CSK is the torchbearer.
And in terms of captain, who is most strict captain?
Strict.
Dhoni, Mr. Our Mahi Bhai or Dada?
Yeah, no captain is strict. I wouldn't say they are strict. They are at that stage, everybody is a professional when you're playing in the IPL. So everybody knows how to go about that things. And it's not like you're being scolded or stuff like that is happening on the field or off the field in team meetings. It's a very professional atmosphere. In fact, in CSK, there aren't many team meetings that happen. So everybody has a different way of organizing stuff before the matches. CSK was very limited team meetings and you know your roles. a lot of guidance and a lot of thoughts are shared in your practice sessions. But when it comes to game day, you just go there and perform. You have the freedom to take your own decisions.
Perfect. So you mean to say clause 5A of professional cricket is fully applicable in CSK?
Yes, and with all other franchises, I would like to say as well, because at that stage, with so much of glamour, so much of popularity, so much of fan following, so much of money, incentives involved, that's a straight ticket for the country if you do well in the IPL. So everybody comes in there with a professional mindset, especially the younger Indian kids now. They're very mature. They understand this, that the IPL is a stepping stone for them to play for the country. So nobody takes it easy. Everybody plays in a very professional manner.
Perfect. So, I want to know another thing from you. So, most of my student ask me, a law students, I mean to say, sir, we are a law student, sir, we can't manage our law studies with cricket. So, what's your suggestion on that? So, it's better to get it from a professional cricketer. How to manage a law study with a cricket?
That's a tricky question. See, if you're playing professional sports, you can't really manage both. So I did all my studies probably in the off season. I was lucky enough to just give my exams. Special exams were conducted for me, and I gave those in the off season and completed my LLB. But I know after making an actual switch, how hard it is to. Because now for the past 3 or 4 years, I have zero time to take out for sports, and I'm doing my LLM as you've already discussed with me earlier. Now I don't have really any time to play sports and then balance that with the study aspect. So ultimately, if you have to be serious and committed in one field, you can't. If you want to have some fun and play cricket as a pastime, perhaps yes, but to do both professionally, it's very, very difficult.
So, yeah, those who don't know, like Mr. Trivedi is also a student of LLM student from King's College, London. So, he's in the top 100 law school. So he's pursuing LLM in international law, right? If I'm not wrong. Then
That's
again,
correct.
you will be pursuing for sports law as we have discussed, right?
Fingers
So
crossed.
what's your plan to be in arbitration of sports or in normal ECJ?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see. We'll bite that bullet when it comes.
Perfect. So thank you now, Ryan. If you have anything to mind.
So yeah, so I have a kind of different question. It kind of involves a little bit of legal aspects. So I want to ask you. So from you've been a professional athlete, and you've seen the different levels to being a professional athlete. So many a times, athletes at the lower levels, when it comes to legal aspects, they don't have that knowledge. So now, since you have an experience in law, in the field of law, I want to ask you how important is that, the small bit of knowledge, I mean, yeah, the knowledge, like how important it is that every athlete should know what papers they are signing, or what are the legal statutes binding to the sport they are playing, etc., etc.
Yeah, Ryan, it's a very good question, and you're right. Absolutely, I think the knowledge about basic contract is not at the grassroots levels in our country, and I would say around the world. It's also when you're an athlete, a professional athlete, you're not so much concerned about what's happening in the background. But unlike abroad, where all these sports, all these athletes have their own legal teams which are taking care of their contracts and stuff, here that concept is not existent. So there should be some kind of awareness, not just in the athlete himself or herself, but also it should be obligatory, or some kind of initiative should be taken by these franchisees or whichever entity these athletes represent, to make sure that the athletes are made aware about their rights. For instance, I'll just give you a small example. During COVID, when the chances of the IPL were not big, it was everybody was in the dark of what was happening and whether the IPL will be conducted or not conducted. I got in touch with some of my fellow teammates and some colleagues which I played with in first class cricket, and I just share their contract with me to understand whether for instance, a force majeure clause exists and what happens. Who will be responsible? Will the BCCI take care of its players in case the IPL is not conducted? And I asked these questions to these people as well, and they were not aware. they were said that all their responses were unanimous in terms of being ignorant about the law and in terms of being unaware about how and what the actual scenario is in case the IPL is not conducted. And a reading of that contract showed me that the BCCI is secure, and the players, if the IPL does not happen, they do not get any compensation. So these kind of situations just got me thinking that this is something which is directly related to, one, the drafting of the contract, as well as awareness about how, as to where these players stand at the moment in terms of being aware of all these clauses that exist in the contract. So coming back to your question, I think not just the players themselves, because it's next to impossible for somebody who's playing at a professional level to make that effort and start reading things and understanding how these contractual planes work. There isn't really a legislative statute, like you said, which would govern all this, because this would all come under the plane of contractual law. But to understand the nitty-gritty of the legal sphere is not so simple. So I think the initiative needs to be taken from the industry, the sports industry, and these franchises to make the players aware of where they stand legally and what their rights are.
Yeah, you're perfectly right in this. Like you have taken this point perfectly right. But say, if you, I know you have played in many international league also. If you see some international clubs and all, and you know, like even if you take football or cricket in this international level, also in UK, you are going to UK and coming back. So in that clubs also, they have their own lawyers also, as well as you have your lawyer, as well as league have their lawyer. So people are work there much more smoother than us. I believe that they know what they are doing on, what will be the consequences and all. But yeah, you are absolutely, Mr. Trivedi, you are absolutely right on this point. In our field in India, sometimes we get in dark, like we don't know what will be the consequences and all. Like even in like there are many cases also in competition law aspect and all, federation, all India chess federation, all India this wrestling federation, athlete does not know what will be the consequences if they change their segment from one place to another. Even judges are sometimes
Not just that, but also in terms of doping issues. A lot of people are not aware of how it works, whether they can get their samples tested, how they can get their samples tested, what kind of application they need to put in case they want to not plead guilty. So these are nuances that, so for instance, now in cricket, you have all these corruption sessions where you're made aware about match fixing. And if bookies approach you, you need to report those bookies. There are separate, I wouldn't say classes, but sort of seminars held with the corruption officials from the ICC. So every team member sits there. So similarly, these kind of exercises should also be initiated for contractual issues and understanding your rights and where you stand against that industry, in the sporting industry, and against that franchisee.
So like, yeah, this is another good example of doping. Because see, in India we have only NADA, and NADA was banned for a certain period of time from WADA, if you remember. And then I have done I was done a course with our UK anti-doping agency, UKD. So because you have to, if you are working with them, you have to go for these courses and all, those fully free courses and all. So I was also starting to know that like this doping agency in UK and all, they have a proper website. So where if you are using certain, you guys like each and every athlete use a protein, like whey protein, mass protein. They use that for their purpose, right?
Yeah.
So this website, what they do, they provide the, like if you put something in this, like the barcode number in that their website, they will show there is in the like prohibited substance or not. But in India, we don't have anything like that.
I think just a small correction. I think just a small correction there, Mr. Subhajit. I think what that website does is there are certain companies, when it comes to specifically these protein powders, there are certain companies which get their batches tested by WADA associated or affiliated companies or laboratories. Although WADA will never certify them, but they are affiliated. So then you have certain kind of assurance that these samples are tested. And those batch numbers you can feed in and see if the batch that you have with you from that company has been tested by that laboratory and it is safe to use or not.
So yeah, that is like, yeah.
So the only way I have this knowledge is because of those seminars which were conducted on anti-doping and corruption and everything. Similarly, these kind of things should also be conducted across the spectrum in all sports, not just cricket. Cricket, there's so much money that it is feasible to do all these things. But what of hockey? What of football? What of all your other sports, table tennis, etc., athletics, football, or archery, whatever. You get my drift. So some kind of initiative needs to be taken, not just from these entities, these franchisees, which are conducted the private leagues, but also from the government, say the Sports Authority of India, to make all these sports athletes aware of where they stand and how they should protect themselves.
So yeah, like there is one famous lawyer in anti-doping, Mr. Parth Goswami from India itself. So he was also saying, sharing me one story is the local, like we know, like in local gym, the grassroots level when athletes go there, so the gym owners say, "Arey, you आप ये वाला whey protein use कर लीजिए, अरे आप ये ले लीजिए," and without any knowledge they have that, and after sometimes when they are going for a test, they got positive result, and that is
Yes.
something without knowing. It's absolutely true. We need to go through some of this like courses and all, like so basically the grassroots level, because see, if we say about cricket, don't take me otherwise, I am fully surrendering myself. If we say about cricket in India, we feel like cricket is a elite game, right? Whereas in like hockey, football or javelin, we say it like from like lower class to upper class, right? Neeraj Chopra was not famous. Like be true on this fact, right? No, even trade and the advertising is not giving on. No one cares of Neeraj Chopra a few years back also, right? If I'm not wrong. But now you can see
No, like, absolutely. But I think it's directly related to the laurels that you bring to the country, and also the viewership and the TRPs that you generate through a sport. But you're right in your assessment. Of course, people should be more aware and should follow other sports as well with equal enthusiasm as they put with cricket or as they infuse in cricket.
so like yeah, so I have like yeah, sports means all total sports were somewhat like if you, the UK culture is something like every sport they treat equally, whether it's a cricket, whether it's a football. Even the Olympian and Paralympian, they given the respect is both of them is same. But India, we don't care about the Paralympian. Even if they make medals and all, we don't care about that. Like even few years back,
I would say now with the advent of social media and this progress in, the information being disseminated across the spectrum very ubiquitously, all these people, these Paralympians, these Olympians are getting recognition now. So things are changing because like you're talking, like Ryan is talking, like I'm talking over here about these issues. There are many other people who are also recognizing that these gaps exist, and they are making efforts to kind of make recognize the efforts that these other athletes outside the realm of cricket put towards their sport and bring all these laurels for the country. So things are slowly changing for the better, I would say.
so let's see, even some years back, we also have a like a confusion on the state, like which BCCI will be a government body or not, the state recognized or not. If you remember, like everyone knows this case. If we say Article 12, we have to go through this case, right? It was started from someone else, then it went to some other direction.
This is that Lodha committee case you're talking about.
No, the previous one, the G Telefilm one,
Z Telefilm.
the broadcasting case.
Yeah. Correct.
Then
2015.
2020, not 2015. It's for more above before that, 2002 or somewhere like that.
That state issue arose a lot after. Is it in Z Telefilms that this state issue arose?
Yeah, it's in the G Telefilm case.
I think this was also considered in that Lodha committee reforms issue, which the Supreme Court.
After it was taken precedent from there. So we see, Mr. Dwivedi, we don't use a legal term here. Okay, no precedent, no received decidendi. So the other layman, we have to use the layman terms. So yeah, they have taken reference from that over there also, right? But have you seen, Mr. Dwivedi, one thing in a lighter note? The person, my co-host, he's wearing a jersey there. So I will just make a comment, one comment on this. He's wearing a jersey with the team. We have a best, like one of the Indian captain is leading that team. He's also his birthday today. But this team has never won a cup. Never. So what's your call on that? What's your call on that on their fan? How much pity you are on their fan?
Pity would be a wrong word to use. It'd have negative connotations. But see, it's a great team. RCB has a very special place in my heart as well because I made my debut against RCB. and I hit Kane Watson for a few sixes in that game. So, and this was being played at Chinnaswamy, which is their home ground. But I think other than that, RCB is a great team. For some reason, they've never been able to clinch a title. Somewhere down the line, they should be able to get their hands on that gold someday.
So don't you think, as for me, if you mention me, how do you think RCB? I feel RCB is someone like who scored good in unit test, but when it comes to final exam, they fail. You have this type of friend in your class, whereas like Kochi Tusk and Gujarat Lion, I feel like they had the like a student exchange program. They came for 2 years, then they went by. CSK never scored good in the unit test, but they will top in the exam.
CSK does both. It tops in the unit test also, and it tops the exam. And Mumbai Indian is somebody who would, if you were to draw a reference from your analogy, they don't do so well usually in the unit test, or they make up places in the last half of the league stage, and then they end up winning somehow the finals. But yes, coming back to RCB, I can't really pinpoint one problem, because they have the names, they have all the players, they have very skillful set of players that they have in their setup, and even the coaching. I think the coaching staff keeps changing for some reason every 1 or 2 years. I don't know. I'm not sure why that happens. But see, when you lose in IPL, even the owners, your team management, your directors, your captains are accountable to the owners. So they don't understand cricket, the technicalities of cricket, but they are deeply involved. So they want results. So when you don't deliver, then they want somebody to be held accountable. I am presuming that is one of the reasons why the management keeps changing so often in RCB. But then the core group of their players has largely remained the same. It's been Kohli and De Villiers and some of the other players. I think Moeen Ali was there this year. And this year they played really well. Unfortunately, they couldn't win. But somewhere down the line, they should probably do it. Perhaps when Virat seats captaincy and gives it to De Villiers or somebody else.
So yeah, in that regard, I wanted to ask you. So you were part of the Pune Warriors squad when RCB hit the highest total, and assuming you were there for that match, you witnessed Gale's 175, if I'm not wrong. So I want to ask you: is that the greatest innings you've witnessed before your eyes, or is there another innings that just strikes your head?
Yeah, it's too far back in my memory. I don't really recall exactly how he shaped up his innings. I do remember that he hit one of my state mates, Ali Murtaza, for 5 sixes in 1 over. But that's an interesting question. See, in IPL, there are of course, in terms of the amount of runs that he scored, that would definitely go down as one of the great innings. But in IPL, because of the nature of the sport, it's a T20 game, even short cameos can often change the game. I remember, just off the cuff speaking, I remember Andre Russell and Hardik Pandya scored 90 odd in 30 balls each to win a game from nowhere. That was I think, one of the great innings of the IPL as well. And obviously, Virat's 5 centuries in that 2016 season, who can forget? 4 or 5, whatever it was.
So now coming to Pune Warriors India, like you were there in time of Dada also, right?
Yeah, so that team was there for 3 years. I was there for all 3 years.
So you came to Eden Garden, right? And you have witnessed something which was less people will see that the full Eden Garden only for the one man changing from purple to blue, right? So what was your experience in that thing? Like, what do you feel about Calcutta in Eden Garden during that time, the high tense moment?
Well, the fans are crazy about Saurav Ganguly. If there's one state in the country which loves their cricketer more than Sachin Tendulkar, it has to be Bengal. It has to be Saurav Ganguly. There's probably now, with Dhoni's success, also Jharkhand would be similar. But there's the craze around Saurav Ganguly is something else. It's next level. And you know how Bengalis are passionate about the sport, so they take it a notch higher.
So, and now coming back to one thing, like in IPL now we'll be having a team from Lucknow itself. So are you
Mhm.
planning to join somewhere like in this as a lawyer or some manager in this Lucknow team? Because obviously they need a lawyer,
Well,
and you are
yes.
a Lucknow boy.
If they release an advertisement for hiring lawyers, then I will probably sign up. But until then, I will wait for them to approach me, if at all.
If you get that,
And
please take me as your intern, okay? Just telling.
this is Mr. Trivedi. This is very big problem with our new generation in law students. Whenever they talk with some lawyers and someone, there is a take me as an intern.
But why do you see this as a problem?
See, they will not say like take me as an intern, take me as an intern. Directly they will say take me as an intern. Normally when you see now if you are talking with some like kings, you are as you are in kings. So when you're talking with professor also you will think for before time. You will send a mail, hi sir, how are you and all. But if you're India, they will directly say to you, no hi, hello, how are you sir? Sir, I'm a student from Christ and I want to do intern with you.
But see,
This
we've already been talking now for close to 1 hour. So I think that formality has.
okay, so then that's on you. That's on your call.
But of
And
course, all this is in lighter vein. Yes.
and then another thing, like who is your next generation best keeper? We have many young talented coming out.
Rishabh Pant. Rishabh Pant, without a doubt.
So what's making you more fascinated about the one-handed six, which is now
I
his trademark?
hitting those kind of sixes from very close quarters because we play for the same, we used to play for the same club in Delhi. So we've been teammates also for a long time. And I've seen him doing all this from when he was about 16, 17 years old. So it doesn't surprise me at all. He was always a swashbuckling, hitter. He has that exceptional talent, exceptional eye to hit a long ball, which is valued now in cricket.
So nowadays people are saying that like after like many people say it's a poser for Rishabh Pant, one-handed six, only person in the like in the cricket, one-handed six. So do you think like you are his friend? So do you also say to him like this, why this poser 106?
No. I mean, there is some technique behind it. Without going into the details, it's a technical issue as well. It's not like I can understand it looks very glamorous and all, but it is also effective. That is why he does it. He's got a very smart brain, so he understands how he's operating. And kudos to him, he's able to pull off these kind of things which nobody has done before. And this is what that X factor is what sets him apart. That's what set apart Dhoni when he walked into the Indian side.
So Ryan, what's on
So-
your mind except the internship?
Except?
Except internship part, what's in your mind?
Oh, yeah, so Eklavya, so speaking of which, the World Cup's currently going on. Who do you think is gonna win? Like a direct guess.
I think Pakistan has a strong chance now with India not qualifying or unlikely to qualify. And I would also say New Zealand can be the world beater on their given day. If the wickets are fine, I've not really been happy about the way they've made the pitches, curated the pitches, because they've not been. You can't have this kind of a schism that exists with the side batting first and the side batting second. The difference in the pitch is huge. But coming back to what you asked, I think Pakistan has a strong chance if India doesn't qualify. And from the other group, I don't know who's qualifying from the other group. Who is it? Is Australia qualifying? England has a very strong
England, yes.
opportunity.
England has been winning.
And they have covered all aspects in terms of the skill. They have good fast bowlers, good spinners, very good openers. So England also. If it was an England-Pakistan final, I would say England would take it. But let's see. We are playing in an Islamic country, so Pakistan will have the energy behind them.
So mostly like in Group A, I think England is in number 1 and Australia is in number 2.
Yeah, that's what
Even
I
they
thought.
have played only four matches, so mostly they are qualifying. But don't you think that we played IPL there in Dubai, then our players were there for a long time, then they can click that part. See, some people are saying like I was listening to many commentators also saying that winning a toss is not a factor. it's how you bat. So I was in shock even in the first two matches. Like what happening to our players? Suddenly, how?
That's not entirely correct. I think toss, especially on these kind of wickets, is a huge factor. It's a difference of 30, 40 runs, if not more. Because the dew comes in the second innings, and it makes it a lot more easier to bat on these wickets when the ball starts sliding onto the bat. So it's not correct to say that toss doesn't make a difference. Toss would not make a difference if the wicket was entirely flat and there was no dew. If the conditions change for one side against the other, then obviously toss is a huge factor.
So you are taking Trump if India does not qualify for Pakistan.
Sorry?
If India does not qualify this World Cup, so your favorite choice will be Pakistan. Like favoring choice.
I would want them to win. Given the last 6 months, what all they've been through, it would be great for them to have some kind of glory in their cricket.
So let's say even like in last match, even in Scotland, the wicketkeeper Scotland, he was also saying something behind the mic like whole India is supporting you. Come on, when it was again New Zealand.
Who did he say that to?
The bowler, if you remember who was the bowler who was bowling that time?
I don't remember, sir. But then, yeah, it was because Scotland actually almost pulled off the victory, and yeah, no, ideally yes. This happened in the first innings, but in the second innings also there was a very good chance that Scotland was about to beat New Zealand. So yeah, the whole of India, if you saw Twitter, it was like Indians were cheering more for Scotland than for India at a certain point. It was quite exciting.
Just like the next match, we will support Afghanistan.
Yes, definitely, because Afghanistan needs to beat New Zealand for us to qualify.
So mostly the people are supporting your teammate only, Rashid Khan.
Yes. Rashid Khan and Mohammad Nabi. He was also my team.
So last thing, do you think if by chance India manages to qualify, they edge through? Do you think they go all the way?
Yeah, I think so, because I'm pretty sure during the knockouts, the wickets would be more consistent. And if the wickets are consistent, the kind of stroke players we have, other than England, nobody matches our batting strength. So in that sense, I would say India would have a really strong chance of winning the cup.
So, Mr. Trivedi, you have experience with Nabi and Rashid Khan also. So, how was the experience like as a teammate, like when you were going on not in practice, I mean, just in lighter mood?
Yeah, they're all good people. They are very humble, ready to help everybody, and they are all good guys. They don't have any airs about them, and they are dedicated to their craft. They take their cricket very seriously.
So, this is not political. We were asking on when the scenario of Afghanistan changed. Mm-hmm. So, have you been in contact with them? What was
I sent them a message asking them if everything is okay with their families and all. I guess anybody else in my position would do that as well.
So it's perfect. The Afghanistan scenario, even they are playing for Afghanistan using the national flag after even that has been boycotted by the government, the recent government, I mean to say. So this is very big achievement.
But I'm pretty sure that's correct, and I'm pretty sure they have some kind of a green light from the incumbent right now to go ahead and use the flag in that fashion.
So let's
it could also be some kind of an issue with the ICC, because they would probably not have recognized the new government, and therefore they would have had to play under the old banner. I'm not too sure of it, but something along these lines.
So we will not moving towards a political issue. So we are going towards the international law from sports law, like sports law or the sports view. So except cricket, what's your other sports you're interested in, and what's your favorite club in that?
So when you say club, you automatically force me to talk about football, and I'm not a big football fan. So when I was still playing sports, in the off season, I used to love swimming. I used to love playing TT. I played all sports basically, and I I like tennis. I would follow tennis on the screens, and I liked watching Federer play a lot. I think he's fantastic. But no particular club as such which I followed religiously. I'm not, like I said, I'm not big on football, so I don't really follow all these Premier League matches and stuff.
So it's like your summertime, like your off time will be only in tennis, lawn tennis.
I wouldn't play all lawn tennis, but I like to watch Wimbledon and all whenever it is happening. But off season, usually you're training for the season, so it's like a round the clock cycle. Around the year.
So you move from one country to another for training also, right? So which country you prefer the most, like England or Australia? If we say the cricket,
I would say England because of the weather. It's cooler there, and you don't get as tired as you would in the subcontinent. And it makes it easier to train harder and recover faster.
and which your favorite stadium?
In England, Lords, definitely.
And if I take all over the world, which will you take first?
So
Chinnaswamy.
it's an interesting question. There are many facets involved. I don't know in terms of how the stadium looks or the facilities or the pitch. You will have to narrow down the options for me to give you a concrete answer.
So I will say
which I like depending on these parameters.
So in cheering, like in the moment, like the people they are supporting staffs and all, like the spectators.
Undoubtedly, Wankhede and Chinnaswamy, two stadiums. But that is largely because of the structure of the stadium. They are built in such way that the voice, it just reverberates. So the fans, when they shout and all, it's very heavy.
So Ryan, I think Ryan has some question for you. I think.
No, I had no
Ryan,
question.
you
I
should
was
not take Mr. Divedi's holiday, right? He's in Goa. Just keep this in mind. So
so when you asked that question,
also
I was just
Diwali is in Goa.
expecting
keep this
Chinnaswamy
in
as the answer.
So Ryan, this is the last question from your side, and give it to you.
So lastly, actually I'm out of questions, but my last question to you is I hope it's not an emotional side, but do you miss the game? And if you ever got an opportunity to go back and play, would you go back and play?
Miss the game, definitely. I miss the memories more and being in a dressing room. But of course, you miss the game. Something that you've given 20, 25 years of your life, you obviously would miss it. Anybody who would say otherwise would be, probably lying. But in terms of going back, I would love to go back with this experience and into the shoes of a young 10-year-old, but not go back and start from scratch again. Because then you go through the entire cycle. I liked my cricket. I played a lot of good cricket. So I wouldn't exchange those memories for anything.
Definitely, sir. So once again, on behalf of Global Sports Policy Review, thank you so much for taking time, especially on a holiday today, and sharing all of your words. It was brilliant having you. We had a lovely conversation. Happy Diwali again, and thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me. It was great talking to both of you guys as well.
Thank you, sir. And hopefully you are not having that fish raw, which you have caught in the beach.
I will grill it and then have it.
Yeah, so you're not the Amir Khan from Dil Chahta Hai. I got it.
Not quite. Thank you.
Sir.
Okay.